Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. It's a huge privilege to speak in today's debate, and I thank the member for Carl-Shorten and Wallington for bringing the debate. And it gives me great pride to represent a part of London that has such a profound LGBT plus history. I feel very fortunate that my constituency includes one of the world's best known gay districts in Soho, as well as places such as the West End and Piccadilly Circus that all form part of London's LGBT plus social and cultural fabric. From hosting the first UK march in 1972, places like Soho have developed at the centre of London's gay community. Historically, it is of huge importance, and many of the conversations on gay rights started in the same bars and spaces that still line the streets of Soho today. It was on these streets, in these spaces, that people came to show their solidarity. They stood up not just for themselves, but for the gay community everywhere. And to this I pay tribute. They made their case for reform, despite visceral discrimination. They listened to those who opposed them and challenged them in open debate. And slowly but surely, they won the support, not just of parliamentarians in this place, but the wider society. And today I pay tribute to all those trailblazers. Because of these people, support in Britain for the LGBT plus community has been built on firm foundations and is now embedded in our culture and supported by all mainstream political parties. I recently spoke to activist and campaigner Philip Baldwin for an episode of my podcast. Here we spoke about the challenges the LGBT plus community has faced, from fighting for equal rights to breaking down stigmas. He told me that in 2003, at the age of 24, he was diagnosed with HIV. And a week later, he was told he also had hepatitis C. And because of medical advancements, his HIV status is no longer a life sentence, and his hepatitis C has actually been cured. But when he got the diagnosis, it was not a life sentence that my friends back in the 80s and 90s had to face. Because thanks to scientific and medical advancements and attitudes among scientists and doctors, people can now live with the diagnosis of HIV and can expect to live an approximately the same life expectancy than everybody else. But the fact is, when I was a teenager, if you were diagnosed with HIV, that was the death sentence. This new era of treatment was made possible in parts by researchers in St Mary's Hospital in my constituency of the Cities of London and Westminster. And from the early 1980s, St Mary's became the site of groundbreaking trials which would change the course of treatment and research for years to come. These included a pioneering study of 400 gay men led by Professor Jonathan Webber, the current faculty's dean, who was back then a junior doctor. Mr Speaker, when I was writing the speech, I spent some time reflecting on actually how far LGBT rights have come in my lifetime. In fact, in 2023, it marks 20 years since the dark days of Section 28, the law that banned, and I quote, the promotion of homosexuality in the UK, when that was repealed. And it gives me no pleasure to recognise that that law was brought in by a previous Conservative administration. And I note what the member for Carl-Shorten and Wallington said about the relationship and sexual education review that is currently going on. And as a mother of two, one who has now left school, I believe it is vital that we ensure that our children are taught about sexuality, consent and respect and everything else that is informed within relationship and sexual education. There should be no ban, including education on homosexuality and trans. I do think it must be age appropriate. Yet since this time we talked about Section 28 and how we've come across. You know, today I'm so proud that same-sex marriage is now legal. Discrimination against the LGBT plus community is quite rightly outlawed, and conversion therapy, I hope, is due to be banned. And on this I want to put on record that the sooner this becomes a law, the better. Only the other day, I was having a conversation about how far we have come in Parliament itself. 20 years ago, the then Labour government brought in a bill to allow gay people to adopt. At that time, the then Conservative Parliamentary Party, and I'm sure my colleagues will be interested in this because I was whipped to vote against it. But there were 3 Conservative MPs who rebelled, who defied that whip. They refused that whip. Those 3 MPs were George Osborne, David Cameron and Boris Johnson. And whether you agree with their politics or not, this rebellion was the start of a new wave of Conservative thinking about gay rights. And it was this new generation of Conservatives, led by David Cameron, in government that was responsible for passing the last major piece of LGBT equality legislation, with the Marriage Same-Sex Couples Act 2013. Gay people were finally treated as equals, and the last piece of legal discrimination aimed specifically at this particular group of British people was removed. I remember when David Cameron launched the government's gay marriage legislation, and it was quite controversial within our party, well, parts of our party at the time. And he said, "I do this not despite being a Conservative, but because I am a Conservative." And for me, that resonates with everything I believe in as a Conservative. What David Cameron was saying was that in the Conservative Party, it is the home to everyone. So let us not forget how far Britain has come in welcoming LGBT people as valued and respected members of our society. We have made great progress towards LGBT plus equality in my lifetime, but the fight is far from over. And as we've all discovered today and discussed today, the world does remain a dangerous place for many gay people. And I was, quite frankly, just appalled to learn of the recent anti-gay bill in Uganda. And in the UK, we can still go further with gay rights, and we must ban conversion therapy. And with that, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I look forward with hope and with pride.